Mr. Speaker, or Mr. President.
Senator from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are we in a quorum call?
We are not.
Thank you, Mr. President. Over the last few weeks, I have spoken with countless Tennesseans who are really appreciating the One Big Beautiful Bill because they're learning of the impact that it is going to have on their families, on their businesses, and their pocketbooks. And Tennesseans are telling me, once we talk about this bill, they're telling me how this law will help them make their business more successful, their community better, and will indeed end up leaving more cash in their pocketbook. Thanks to the law, Tennessee families will save an average of $2,600 next year on taxes and see a take-home pay increase of as much as $10,000. Now, this is going to give some much-needed relief after 4 years of Bidenflation. Over the August work period, and it was absolutely wonderful, I've met with restaurant businesses and servers, and they've talked about the law's reduction of taxes on tips and overtime and how that is going to help them keep more money in their pocket. And going from one side of the state to the other, I've heard from seniors who are talking about how they're going to be able to lower their tax burden. And that is because we have the $6,000 bonus deduction per senior per year. When you're a couple married filing jointly, that $12,000 bonus deduction for our nation's seniors, that is basically going to remove the income tax from most of the Social Security payments for about 88% of our nation's seniors. Now, millions of hardworking families are planning for the future thanks to the law's enhanced child tax credit and expanded child care access. And we've done this through the employer-provided child care tax credit. And I appreciate my colleagues at Senate Finance working with me as we sought to get that into the legislation, as we sought to put in place the bonus deduction for seniors. These are things, Mr. President, that are really going to serve so many Tennesseans so very well. Now, we had meetings with chambers and met with many in the business community, and hearing from so many of these small business owners, what they wanted to talk about was how after the 2017 law was passed, they started hiring staff and growing that business. And now they are able to continue to keep this staff, to purchase new equipment, to invest in their communities. And by making these tax cuts, the 2017 tax cuts, permanent, the estimate is we will be protecting about 100,000 jobs in Tennessee. And much of this is because of the bonus depreciation, that 100% bonus depreciation deduction, immediate expensing of research and development, interest deduction, 199A for pass-throughs. And these companies are looking at how they grow. They're looking forward to this growth. I also had the opportunity, whether I was at the State Fair or meeting with some members of the ag community or the Farm Bureau, we talked about the provision that we have in the law that raises the estate tax exemption to $15 million or $30 million for a couple. And what this does, Mr. President, is to allow these family farms, generational operations to be passed on to the next generation so that that legacy of farming and hard work can continue. We know that for small businesses, and so many of our nation's small business entrepreneurs, they've worked hard, they've built a business, they have built a manufacturing firm, and to know that they can pass it on to the next generation without fear of that generation having to sell the business in order to pay the tax. This provision, raising that death tax or estate tax exemption, is going to prohibit double taxation. There's about 2 million family farms that this is going to affect, and we know that they're appreciative of this. Now, for our military communities in Tennessee, and we have some wonderful military communities. We have Fort Campbell that is primarily in Tennessee. We have the Millington Air Naval Station. We have Arnold Engineering. We've got the National Guard. We have such a strong presence in our state. And this legislation in the Big Beautiful Bill has $150 billion in a boost to our national defense funding. And this is a way we can push forward with modernization and make certain that we remain the strongest lethal fighting force on the face of the earth. There's also funding for the Gold Dome missile defense system. This we're beginning to see a good bit of work in when you talk about the low Earth orbit satellites and beginning to build out this Gold Dome defense system to protect our country. In addition to this, we have provisions in there for our military families to strengthen health care and child care and improve housing and education for our service member families. For 4 years under President Biden, Tennessee's suffered because of his anti-America energy policies. So the Big Beautiful Bill ends these far-left mandates and regulations and provides Made in America tax breaks to support energy production right here at home. You know, Mr. President, when I talk to Tennesseans, they want us to be energy independent. They don't want us having to depend on other countries to be able to get oil and gas. They don't want us to have to import that. They want energy independence. And President Trump's pro-energy policies and this agenda is the reason why over this Labor Day weekend, our gas prices at the pump were at the lowest level that they have been in 5 years. The lowest level. Border and border security is vitally important to Tennesseans, and this legislation in the Big Beautiful Bill that is now a law has $75 billion in funding to hire additional ICE agents. And we have seen the results that have taken place by Homeland Security being out there, working with local law enforcement, conducting raids, apprehending these criminal, illegal aliens. And people have wanted to see this done. You know, Mr. President, I have not talked to one single person who has said, I want MS-13, I want Tren de Aragua living in my neighborhood. We want them buying a house here. We want them setting up shop here. But what they do say is this: thank goodness MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and these other violent gangs are being apprehended and they are being deported. That is what the Trump administration is doing, and it is exactly what the American people want to see done. We also have provisions in the big, beautiful law that will go back to building the wall and securing the southern border, so we never have an open border like we had during the Biden years, where people are running across that border, as many as 160,000 a month. That's a population size larger than most cities in Tennessee. Now, there's also some money in this that is going to deal with transportation, and everybody knows that infrastructure is vitally important. And I want to touch on what is happening with aviation there. This is important to Tennessee. The Nashville International Airport in June welcomed more than 2.4 million travelers. That was an all-time high number. And that number, we know, is going to continue to grow. So the bill provides $12.5 billion to modernize our nation's air traffic control system. That is going to help improve safety, speed, efficiency, and we're appreciative that Secretary Duffy is putting his attention on how you modernize this system so it is more safe, secure, and efficient. One of the provisions that I had the opportunity to work on was the Rural Health Transformation Program. In Tennessee, we have 95 counties. 78 of those 95 counties are deemed rural. And this Rural Health Transformation Fund is a $50 billion fund. It is there to strengthen access to health care in rural areas. And the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and Dr. Oz, who is our leader at CMS, has launched a web page for this program. It's going to reward innovation. Part of the money is going to be a payment to these hospitals. The other part, that $25 billion, is going to be, how do you innovate? Here is money to innovate. How do you increase access? And our rural hospitals and health clinics who are working on this issue can go to cms.gov and they can pull down the information, how to apply for these grants, how to make certain that they are using the resources that are there, learning more about this program, and how it is going to be able to help them increase access to health care, how they can focus on workforce development and retention, how they can look at innovative new processes and use technology. So we're looking forward to good results coming from that, because smart, good people who are focused on delivering health care are going to have the opportunity to apply for these grants and to focus on how they make health care more accessible in these rural areas. Well, as you can see, there is so much in here that is a positive that will improve the lives of so many Tennesseans. And as I said, they're beginning to see it in their pocketbooks. They're seeing it at the gas pump. They know that their taxes, we've made those tax rates permanent. And they know this is going to benefit their communities because, Mr. President, you'll see businesses grow. You will see businesses hiring new workers. And I think that as people have celebrated Labor Day, they know that this is a time where they have a president in the White House where he is putting them first. He's putting them and their future and the future for their kids. He's putting that first. And he is pushing forward with making certain that America and all of our states, our communities, are going to be safe, secure, and prosperous. Thank you, Mr. President. I note the absence of a quorum.